All right, everyone. I thought I would make a kind of a newer video here. I kind of want to go more into depth about my pick for UFC 314 in the co-main event, Paddy Pimblett versus Michael Chandler. I have picked Paddy Pimblett to get the round 2 or round 3 submission over Michael Chandler, and I wanted to go over some stats and go a little bit more in depth into the fight itself and why I'm picking Paddy Pimblett. But first off, let's get started. He's on an 8-fight win streak, okay? He's carrying a lot of momentum with him. Now, say what you want about his past opponents, but when we're on an 8-fight win streak, we tend to carry the momentum into, greater things. He's got 6 wins by knockout, 6 wins by knockout, and he has 10 wins by submission. He is very dangerous on the ground. He's very dangerous getting taken down and putting people into, dangerous submissions like he did against Bobby Green, who immediately shot on him, and then Paddy immediately put him into danger. When we look at his striking accuracy, he's pretty decently accurate. 53% is pretty good. He's got pretty decent takedown accuracy, and if he doesn't take you down, he normally finds a way to get you against the fence and land a couple strikes on you. 2.13 submission average per 15 minutes, so that's pretty high, honestly. He has an average fight time of 8 minutes and 14 seconds, so typically you're looking at a lot of finishes in the second round, first round kind of area. I think he could get around. The reason why I say round 2 and round 3 is because I think Michael Chandler, he is pretty durable. So if he doesn't get it in the second round, it could go to a decision third, afterwards. But if it does, I still think Paddy. Oh, excuse me. I still think Paddy gets a decision. When we look at his past opponents here, obviously we got the very controversial decision against Jared Gordon. Luckily, Jared Gordon hasn't really done much of no afterwards. But we go all the way down to 2021. Man, 4 years ago. I can't believe that. It seems like it was literally like a couple days ago watching him come into the UFC, and I was like, who the hell? Because I kind of heard like little tidbits of Paddy Pimblett. I saw the video of him like throwing up blood before he came into the UFC, and that was like one of my first introductions to Paddy Pimblett. But he had a really great fight against Vendramini. Got a little bit hurt, but ended up getting the KO actually in round 1 after a hard fought fight on the feet. So he can definitely take some shots, and he can definitely give some back. And that's kind of why I like him honestly get on the feet against Chandler. I think he could surprise people and drop Chandler, honestly. Moving up to one of his first fights at UFC London, Pimblett versus Vargas, gets him down in the first round, submits him. Pretty easy fight for him, honestly. Didn't really go through much. Follows up the same year with another fight in UFC London against Lovett. Also, not too terrible of a hard of a fight for him. I don't really remember the first round that much, but round 2 he gets on top. He gets Levitt down, I believe, and I don't know if it was an arm triangle. No, it was I think he just got his back and choked him out. But anyways, moving up, Pimblett versus Gordon. This is his most controversial one, I would say. A lot of people say he didn't win that fight. At the end of the day, yes, it was a close fight, but Gordon has not achieved anything too great afterwards. If Gordon would have started going on a streak of his own, then it would have been I think a worse look on Paddy. Because then more people would be like, yeah, Gordon would absolutely have smoked him and stuff like that. Now that Gordon has kind of faded off into the distance, honestly, you know, it doesn't look that terrible, honestly. It doesn't look that terrible, at least in my opinion. But yeah, anyways, moving on from that controversial fight to his next fight, which he took Tony Ferguson to a decision. Of course, it was unanimous. Pimblett was pretty much dominating the whole fight, and it was kind of one of those fights where it was like ugh, poor Tony. Poor Tony. You know, it was a really big poor Tony fight. It sucks for Pimblett that he had to fight him. I think this was his last fight in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. And you know, it sucks for Tony Ferguson. He didn't. He really did got no favors from the UFC after his loss to Justin Gaethje. They were just like, oh, you want to keep fighting and losing? Awesome. We'll put you on this card. We'll put you against this guy. We'll put you against this guy. And it felt like it was happening pretty back to back. Like they were like, all right, let's keep the losing train going. No stopping him and being like, all right, why don't we wait a little bit? Match you up with another. I don't know. Whatever. Sad about Tony Ferguson. I'll be making a Tony Ferguson documentary-esque video one of these days. Because I really liked Tony Ferguson, and I still do. I hate to say liked as in past. I still like him. I'm just sad about his current career and where it ended up going. Anyways, moving on to his Bobby Green fight. Now, this was probably one of his best performances in the UFC. Bobby Green, I'm not calling him King Green, by the way. I'm just not stupid. Whatever. Bobby Green, by the way, has been a top 15 guy for a decently long time. Although he was kind of in and out of that top 15 area in the rankings, he's kind of been that guy in that around that area for a long time. And this was a great fight for Pimblett to show that he belongs in that top 10, top 15 area. It was really great for him to immediately take out him as well in the way he did. Guy made a mistake, locked up the choke, and he ended up getting it. I believe it was a triangle he ended up putting him in, and also kind of like armbar as well with the triangle. He kind of put him in a 2-for-1. Really great fight, and it's the reason why I'm picking him over Michael Chandler, because Michael Chandler, if he decides to shoot at all on Paddy, he is going to regret it. And I just don't see Michael Chandler, honestly. I know he's got some crazy looping hooks and stuff, but, we're going to go over to his fights now. Old Michael Chandler. And he's fought, obviously the best lightweights for a minute now, but we go back to 2021. Honestly, Pimblett and Chandler both got in this around the UFC at the same time. Beat Stan Hooker, crazy out of nowhere. I remember watching this when I was living in Portland, Oregon, and I was completely surprised to see someone do that to Dan Hooker, especially after Dan Hooker's fight with Dustin Poirier. That was crazy to watch Chandler do that to Dan Hooker. But, past perspective wise, it's like kind of just like a fluke KO. Yes, he set it up and everything, and he delivered the shot, but as Dan Hooker's been rising up in the rankings again, a lot of people are like, that was before Dan Hooker dyed his hair blonde and got tattoos and stuff like that, so it doesn't count. And it's kind of this weird thing with fans where they can just be like, yeah, he did that before though. It's Dan Hooker actually blah 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 did this and stuff like that. And it's funny how one of his greatest wins is kind of starting to fade away a little bit. Fought Oliveira in the first fight. Honestly, he almost became lightweight champion that night. Almost became light champion in that first round, and unfortunately, Charles Oliveira was able to endure it. Second round comes out and just puts away a gassed Chandler, because he gassed himself out in that first round. He was thinking Oliveira was done, and Oliveira came back and just absolutely smoked him. Went to a 3-round fight with Gaethje. Was having some good moments, but again with the terrible fight IQ and wanting to do like weird, I'm a tough guy. Yeah, hit me, blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, yeah, he's gonna hit you, and he's gonna score points on you while you're getting hit. Like, that doesn't win any sort of points with the judges, allowing yourself to get punched in the face and egging him on and stuff like that. Like, doesn't win points. Another kind of fluky KO, whatever. He knocked out Tony Ferguson. Obviously, I like Tony Ferguson, as I stated before, but like, Tony Ferguson was putting it on him in the first round. Michael Chandler was running scared, man, and he even said in the post-fight interview, Tony Ferguson's has hit him. He's never been hit by hard by that someone hit that hard by someone where he was seeing double and stuff. So honestly, it's still hard to believe that out of nowhere he's just like, yes, direct, throw the front kick, and that's what we're gonna do to KO him. Like, no one could have predicted that. I feel like 9 times out of 10, Tony Ferguson doesn't get hit by that and probably proceeds to beat the shit out of him for the rest of the round two. I don't know. I don't know. Just based off of round one, that's what I have to infer by the way Chandler looked doing that. Then moving on to his Poirier versus Chandler fight. Now this is where I'm thinking Paddy Pimblett could get a similar kind of finish that Poirier gets, because Chandler he did this whole elaborate takedown on Poirier only for him to get out scrambled and get his back taken, get choked out. Like, that's the thing with Chandler, is sometimes when he's trying to be too explosive and like do these elaborate explosive moves and stuff, he overdoes them and the other people end up taking advantage of it. And that's where I think Paddy Pimblett is going to end up beating Michael Chandler. Maybe Chandler tries to only keep it on the feet and he doesn't shoot at all, but I don't know, man. I'm getting a hunch that I think Paddy maybe drops him and that forces Chandler to shoot on him. Just a hunch. Poirier had a couple moments where he was definitely feeling it from Chandler, but for the most part, he was pretty much in control that whole fight, just kind of schooling him on some harder shots. He may have gotten pieced up a couple times against the fence, but for the most part, landed much more devastating counter shots and was able to successfully, I think he's the first person to submit Chandler, but he won't be the last because I think Paddy gets it done. But moving on, we get Oliveira versus Chandler, his last fight, November 16th, 2024. And this is off of a 2-year hiatus off of, not getting the McGregor fight. And this is one of the only things I feel kind of bad for Chandler for. McGregor really played with him, man. He really did. He had him waiting for 2 years, wasted some prime time off him, because I think Michael Chandler's 37 now and he was 35 in 2022. You don't get those 2 years back, man. You don't. And he could have had at least 5 fights, if he comes out of them it seems like he can get back into the fights in about 6 to 5 months after a fight, even if they're like kind of war fights, like with the Justin Gaethje fight. Fought him November 6th, 2021. He's fighting Ferguson May 7th, 2022. So again, like that 6-7 month range, like he can come back at least twice a year. So he missed at least 3 to 4 fights during that time period, which is horrible for him, really horrible, because he could have actually maybe have gotten a title shot. He would have maybe, and again, we're just speculating. Chandler could have maybe have won, a top contender fight, maybe, because after this fight, maybe they give him, hypothetically, after the Poirier versus Chandler fight, and he doesn't fight McGregor. I'm trying to think, maybe they give him someone lower down the rankings. He beats them, fights another person, maybe goes to decision with them, and gets to fight for the title. Again, we're just speculating here on a different hypothetical future that would have happened if he didn't want to fight Conor McGregor, if that fight ever happened. And I'm really disappointed because I really wanted to see McGregor come back and just absolutely school Michael Chandler. But again, another hypothetical future. But anyways, moving on to that, talking about Oliveira versus Chandler, the second one. Again, this was a little bit closer. Definitely a much closer fight than the first one. I guess I don't know how to compare the first one to the second one, honestly. I mean, you really can't compare them. I just think Chandler was just, again, making horrible fight IQ decisions. When he was swinging in some of those exchanges, he's throwing so hard that he's falling over himself. And he's falling to the ground. And that's another reason why I have Paddy able to capitalize on big mistakes Chandler makes like that. Maybe Chandler will be a completely different fighter for Paddy Pimblett. Really take him seriously and like, all right, I can't lose to him because then I won't be in the top 10 anymore. And that would be it for Chandler, honestly. If he loses to Paddy Pimblett, I don't see him pulling up his bootstraps and wanting to fight anyone in the below top 10. I just don't see that happening. But you never know. You never know. Anyways, I feel like that's a pretty good, decent explanation as to why I have Paddy Pimblett over Michael Chandler. Looking back at their past fights and kind of going over a brief history of them, and yeah, just kind of talking about, as far as fight decisions go, this is how I have it going, okay? Round 1, Michael Chandler gets some oohs and ahs, some big looping hook shots on Paddy, pushes up, gets him up against the fence. Paddy engages a clinch, is able to get off. Maybe Chandler lands a couple good strikes on him again. Maybe a body shot or two that gets the crowd going ooh and ah. And then Paddy's gonna end up, kind of locking it in on the feet. Maybe he gets woken up by a shot a little bit and decides to, start locking in the shots. And then I think it'll be like at the end of the round, Paddy's gonna catch him with a good shot, drop him, get Michael Chandler scared. Or it could be the other way around where Michael Chandler drops Paddy, gets him a little bit, excited and like, oh, I'm going to, second round I'm going to come out, destroy him. And then that's where, again, second round, I think Michael Chandler makes a big mistake, either overthrowing a punch, taking a takedown that's just way too explosive and gets out scrambled. Oh, last burp. I just see him making a mistake in the second round. Or possibly even third round after that, because round 2 could be a little bit more of a feeler out, kind of like, all right, we both got our big tools out of there, like, let's see what the next game plan is and stuff like that. That could be a round 2, kind of feeler round, kind of maybe a duller round where, you don't know, it's kind of like a little bit feeling out on the feet, maybe a little bit more grappling exchanges against the fence. Then again, I don't know if Michael Chandler will allow it to be a feeler round because he's always trying to throw to finish. And again, that's why I kind of have I'm guessing more of a round 2. If it does make it to the third round, if Chandler fights a little bit more like he did in the Oliveira fight where he fights more reserved, I still see Paddy kind of etching it out by decision. I feel like he's just going to engage the grappling with Chandler, and Chandler is not going to be able to deal with it. And if Chandler engages the grappling on Paddy, then it could be a big mistake to him where he ends up getting finished with a triangle, ends up getting his back taken. I think Paddy's really underrated on the ground. But yeah. Anyways, that is my kind of in-depth breakdown video for Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. I feel like, a lot of people have Michael Chandler. He could take off Paddy's head. He could KO him. We haven't seen Paddy KO though, and that's my thing. I don't think his chin has been completely knocked out and broken. Like I think maybe Chandler's had his chin rocked and tested a couple times. So, yeah. Anyways, finalizing it. Paddy Pimblett, round 2 or round 3 submission over Michael Chandler. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and let me know what your picks are, and make sure to check out my full breakdown video of my card if you want to see my other picks. I think I'll do one of these videos too on Patricio Pitbull and Yair Rodriguez tomorrow or something like that. But anyways, thank you. I might edit this out. Anyways, thank you for watching. Bye.